Imagine I've decided to have a career change. I want to become a baddie. I'm going to be a megalomaniac, destined to take over the world in my own particular brand of evil. Now, I've been on Rightmove and I found a disused volcano for my underground lair, but what I need now is a car. And, well, Tony Stark, Iron Man, he's got his Audi, hasn't he? And Bruce Wayne, Batman, he drives around in a Lamborghini when he's sort of not doing the stuff in the Batmobile. No, they're all a bit too mainstream, a bit too safe, a bit too sort of VAG. Now I see something different, so I pick up my supercar catalogue and I flick through it, and then, yes, that's what I need. It looks like a baddie supercar, and it's got a name like a baddie supercar, the Zenvo.
In case you haven't checked the final few pages in the Encyclopedia of Car Makers for a while, Zenvo is a small manufacturer based in Denmark, where it was founded in 2007. It got new Russian backers a few years ago, and this TSRS is the middle car in its current range, flanked by the slightly more refined TS1 GT and the even more hardcore track-focused TSR. So, apart from the wing, which we'll come back to in a bit, what do you get for your €1,550,000? Well, you get a car hand-built to your specification over a period of about 8 months. You also get 1177 brake horsepower and over 800 pounds-foot of torque, going to the rear wheels from a twin supercharged, that's the TS part of the name, 5.8 litre V8. It's an engine designed in-house, like pretty much everything on the car in fact. Zenvo even manufactures all the beautifully glossy carbon fibre itself, and there is a lot of it, both outside and in, giving quite a sparse but also rather impressive ambience.
At first it seems sort of quite simple, but then the more you look at it, the more actually you realise there's some real thought gone into this. The sort of the vents down here, the way they've been designed, the little mouldings in the door there, the carbon fibre is beautiful, and it's beautifully trimmed. This stuff reminds me, I'm sure it was on Ferraris at one point in the past. I like the fact as well that it's asymmetric in terms of we've got the blue here for the driver's side and then it's black on the passenger side. For the infotainment system, well, they've gone with an iPad. It actually is. It's an iPad because they figured, well, why not? To be honest, it's kind of future-proofing yourself and it's going to work better than anything else out there. So, yeah, fair play.
The dashboard is also beautifully neatly trimmed. The seats are Zenvo's own design and again look very good, although I felt they needed a bit more lumbar support. Of course, this is all inconsequential stuff to your average supervillain because what we want in a car are flames. I should probably add from the Inconel exhausts before anyone mentions Top Gear.
It really does give some pretty big explosions. We've got 2 power modes activated by this button over here. So we've got IQ, which is suggests it's intelligent, so it's sort of like an extra traction control system, I suppose. So it works on if there's enough grip there, if the wheels are slipping, whether to release any more power or not. We've got normal TCS and ESP over here, which if you won't be troubling too much today on the road. The other power mode is, of course, Max, which kind of does what it says on the tin.
Wind it all up and 0 to 62 miles an hour is dispatched in a claimed 2.8 seconds, and it will reach 124 miles an hour just 4 seconds later. Top speed is limited to 202 miles an hour.
It's one of those cars, the delivery is such that you sort of think, oh, actually, it's not really that scary, it's almost not even that interesting until you really squeeze the throttle. You put it into max mode and then it's pretty lively. You get some pretty big explosions. Pops and bangs, crackles, oh yes.
Given that the gear shifts are accompanied by a sound like a nearby crack of thunder, it's perhaps no wonder that the Zenvo badge is inspired by Thor's hammer. The other button on the right-hand spoke of the wheel says gear. No, I said villain, not drug dealer. And that switches between road and race modes. Obviously race speeds up the shift times, but it also increases throttle response and changes the graphics on the dash. The gearbox is a 7-speed single clutch item with a Cima casing, but again, all Zenvo's own internals.
this blood and thunder 5.8 litre twin supercharged engine, it can actually be relatively civilised in here. The gearbox is capable of pretty smooth shifts.
Don't get me wrong, it is no DCT, and if you ever have to do a 3-point turn, give yourself a bit of time because going from first to reverse or back again is ponderous. Of course, the flip side is that it's not lacking in drama when you crank it up to race.
The thumps on the up change, I quite like actually. They're not as brutal as the ISR shift and Lamborghini Aventador, but there's a lot of theatre to them. The chassis, it's not a carbon tub as you might expect, given all the carbon in this car. It's a aluminium and mostly steel monocoque, semi-monocoque with steel subframes.
Which perhaps explains why, despite all the carbon fibre, the Zenvo has a reasonably hefty dry weight of 1,495 kilos.
We're on KW suspension, it's passive setup, and it's pretty busy and frankly uncomfortable at low speeds, but it does work as you increase the speed. It's been set up clearly for maximum traction in the rear, so you do get some push through the corners, which is actually, it's really quite reassuring and quite nice, and the feel you get through this hydraulically assisted system is lovely. Going to a corner like this, you feel how it's loading up. It's really nicely secure actually through the corners, and you say when it just starts to push, it's not just washing out. You can work with it. You know that a steering system is good when a big car doesn't actually feel too big. So this is 4.8 metres long, and yet it feels nice and easy to place on the road. It's not too intimidating on these narrow B roads. I do really like the brakes on this car as well. Big carbon ceramics, but not by Brembo actually.
They are made by Surface Transforms, which is based in Liverpool and is also supplying brakes to the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
And then of course there is the real talking point, the party piece. The reason you adjust your wing mirrors just up a little bit so you can see it. That rear wing.
The centripetal rear wing can tilt across two axes, flipping forwards to act as an air brake and then pivoting left or right by up to 20 degrees to increase downforce on the inside of the car in corners. Zenvo has tested the wing in Myra's wind tunnel, and apparently tilting the wing only decreases overall downforce from its 270 kilo maximum by 3%, while shifting 30% more onto the desired side of the car.
On the road, of course, it's unlikely to be having a great deal of effect, but quite entertaining. I'm not going to pretend that this has anything like the refinement of a major manufacturer's car. If you're paying for a Bugatti or a Lamborghini, you're getting all that development and polish, really, that this just doesn't have. I mean, things like the gearbox, it takes a while to go from first back to reverse. You've got to give yourself a bit of wiggle room. You have to be aware of things like coming into corners. If you downshift when you're braking, it works on the trackers thing, but you can end up with a bit of push from the supercharger still just sort of overrun, almost pushes you into the corner.
The TS-RS is a curious blend of the innovative and the old school, a mix of the beautifully finished and the slightly raw still in development. So why would you buy this rather than the latest hypercar from a major mainstream manufacturer?
Well, you're not probably going to see another one, are you? They're only going to build 5 of these, and if you think a supercar should just be mad, crazy, stand out, if you buy it to be looked at, then this will certainly do it. I mean, if you just bought that wing and plonked it down on its own without any wheels, I mean, that would do it, I think.
Or you might buy one because you like the plucky underdog. Rather than dismissing it because it's not as good as a Chiron, which it isn't, instead you admire it for being really quite an achievement for something produced by just 20 people in Denmark.
Right, that's enough car reviewing. I'm off to hatch a fiendishly clever but sadly just very slightly flawed plan to take over the world. Mwah! life.